Big Tech just burned $760 billion on AI in a single year, and for the first time in Google's history, their cash flow went negative. Not a little negative, deeply negative. 44.9 billion in capex in one quarter alone. And here's the part nobody's talking about. They're not even close to done. Alphabet just raised their 2026 spending forecast to $205 billion. That's not revenue. That's what they're spending on data centers, chips, and compute. And Google isn't alone. Meta's free cash flow just dropped 91%. 91. Zuckerberg is spending $145 billion this year on AI infrastructure, and their stock dropped 8% the day they announced it. Investors literally ran. Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta combined, they'll spend $760 billion in 2026. That's up 85% from last year. Let me put that number in context. 760 billion is more than the GDP of Saudi Arabia. It's more than the entire defense budget of the United States. 4 companies are spending more on AI infrastructure than the US government spends on its military. Let that sink in for a second. 4 tech companies. 1 year. More than the Pentagon's entire budget. And here's where it gets really uncomfortable. Only 211 billion of that 760 billion actually shows up on their income statements. The rest is capitalized, meaning they're pushing the cost into the future, betting that revenue will eventually catch up. Spoiler alert, it hasn't, not even close. Alphabet's AI revenue is growing, sure. Google Cloud hit 14 billion in quarterly revenue, but they're spending 45 billion per quarter to get there. 45 billion in, 14 billion out. The math doesn't work yet. And analysts at JP Morgan are now openly asking whether this is the biggest capital misallocation in tech history. Those are their words, not mine. And honestly, I think the question is fair, because here's what happens if the bet doesn't pay off. These companies have committed to multi-year data center leases. They've pre-ordered chips from NVIDIA, billions and billions of dollars worth. They've signed energy contracts for gigawatts of power, 7 gigawatts for Meta alone. That's enough electricity to power a small country. If AI revenue stalls by even for 6 months, they're locked into hundreds of billions in fixed costs with nothing to show for it. No off switch, no refund, just bills. But here's the counter argument, and it's a strong one. The last time a tech company went cash flow negative to invest in infrastructure was Amazon in 2014. Wall Street called them insane. Analysts wrote obituaries. Bezos ignored every single one of them. 5 years later, AWS was generating more profit than the entire retail business. Google and Meta are making the same bet right now. They're saying the companies that win the AI infrastructure war will own the next decade of computing, and the companies that don't spend enough will be left behind, dead, irrelevant. The difference? Amazon was one company spending its own money. Now we have 4 companies spending 760 billion simultaneously. If they're all right, AI revenue explodes, and this looks like the smartest investment in history. If they're wrong, we're watching the biggest bubble in tech history inflate in real time. And there's no middle ground here. There's no soft landing. Either the revenue catches up to the spending, or it doesn't. And that's the real story here. Not whether AI is real. It is. The question is whether $760 billion in a single year is the beginning of a new era, or the top of a bubble that'll define this entire decade. Either way, Google just went negative for the first time ever. Meta's cash flow dropped 91%, and neither of them is slowing down. They're accelerating, the bet is getting bigger every quarter, and we're all just watching it happen.